One of the hardest things I've had to admit about my broken marriage is that I didn't just get tired from doing too much. I actually helped build a relationship where too much became expected from me. And no, that doesn't mean it was all my fault, but it does mean I had to look at my part without turning it into self blame. Because there's a difference between saying I caused this and saying I can see how I participated in a dynamic that was still hurting me. That distinction matters a lot because if I'm not careful, I could either blame him for everything or blame myself for staying, and neither one tells the whole truth. The truth is more annoying than that. I overfunctioned, he benefited from it. I came in with my own baggage around control, competence, and doing things the right way. He still had choices. That's the grown woman version of the story. And if you want the truth, I find it very inconvenient. Because listen, it would be much easier if I could look back and say, he was the problem, I was perfect, case closed. Cute story. Not mine. A few people have come into my comments and said some version of,
maybe you had to treat him like a child because you kept doing everything for him.
some said it respectfully. Others came in like they were trying to get blocked. But the annoying part is that they weren't completely wrong. I don't love that, like at all. But I do have to sit with it. In my mind, I was just handling what needed to be handled in my house and my family. If something looked like it might become a problem, I was already solving it before the problem had time to introduce itself. If asking for help meant explaining why it mattered, waiting to see if it got done, following up, and then being disappointed when it didn't happen, I would usually just do it myself. That felt easier in the moment. Over time, that choice became expensive as hell. That's the scam of being an overfunctioner. It gives you short-term peace and charges you long-term resentment. And I had to be honest about where that came from. Part of me really believed there was a right way and a wrong way to do almost everything. And I came by that honestly. My dad was in the military, and I grew up in a house where folding towels wrong could become an emotional event. Like, sir, it's a damn towel. It dries a thigh. Why are we in combat? But when you grow up learning that doing things right helps you avoid criticism, you can become somebody who's very good at noticing what needs to be done, what could go wrong, and how to fix a problem before anybody else even realizes it exists. That can make you capable. It can also make you controlling if you're not careful. And at times, I wasn't always careful. There were times when I jumped in because I genuinely thought I was helping. There were also times when I didn't trust anybody else to do the thing the way I thought it should be done. So I handled it. Then I would resent the fact that I handled it. Then I got mad that I was the only one who knew how to handle it. Friend, that is a very humbling circle because the internet loves a clean villain. And honestly, clean villains would be convenient. Terrible news. Real life does not care about convenience. There were absolutely ways he benefited from my overfunctioning. Let's not play in each other's faces. If somebody keeps carrying the thing you keep putting down, at some point, you know the load isn't even. Maybe you don't call it exploitation because that sounds ugly. Maybe nobody says it out loud because the system is working beautifully for the person doing less. But comfort can become complicity. And if my coping mechanism made his life easier, he still had a responsibility to notice how much I was carrying. We were supposed to be partners after all, right? That part matters. So no, this isn't me saying it was all my fault. Put that foolishness back where you found it. What I'm saying is that my coping mechanism became part of the relationship's operating system. I turned into somebody who saw the problem coming, made the plan, remembered the thing, checked the emotional temperature, anticipated the reaction, and already had a backup plan with a little attitude attached to it. And over time, the question stopped being, should she have to carry all of this? It turned into, well, she's good at it. That's where capable women get caught up. Being good at something doesn't mean it should automatically belong to you. Being able to carry it doesn't mean it needs to become your identity. And being reliable doesn't mean everybody else gets to relax into your exhaustion. That's the trap. You turn into the one who can handle it, and somehow that becomes proof that you should. Then one day you look up and realize the version of you keeping everything together is also the version of you disappearing. That's where self-accountability matters. Not because it gives the other person a pass. His choices were still his choices. His comfort inside that dynamic was still something he needed to look at. But I also have to ask myself why I kept auditioning for a role I didn't even want anymore. Why did I keep proving I could carry more? Why did I treat disappointment like it was easier than delegation? That part will humble you because overfunctioning can start as survival and still turn into a pattern you have to unlearn. It might start with, let me just get this done. A few years later, it can turn into, why does everybody expect me to do everything? And somewhere somewhere in the middle, the relationship learned you would catch whatever fell. That doesn't mean you deserved the exhaustion. It means you finally have language for how you participated in a dynamic that was still unfair to you. Self blame keeps you stuck in shame. Self accountability gives you a door. Self blame says, I caused this. Self accountability says, I can see where I abandoned myself and I can choose differently now. That's a very different kind of power. So, yes, I overfunctioned. I pre solved things that didn't even need solving yet. I overmanaged, over anticipated, and made myself necessary in places where I should have been partnered. And yes, he benefited from all that. Both things can be true. That's the grown up version of the story. Not he was terrible and I was perfect. Not I caused everything because I did too much. The truth is more complicated and honestly more irritating. I had baggage, he had choices. The dynamic had momentum. And the longer it went unchecked, the more normal it started to feel. That's why I don't want women to hear this and immediately beat themselves up. That is not the assignment. The point is not, I should have known better. The point is, now that I know, I don't have to keep confusing being useful with being loved. Because sometimes being capable becomes a trap. Because everybody gets real comfortable letting you carry the weight, solve the problem, manage the mood, and keep the whole thing from collapsing. Eventually, you have to ask yourself, am I being partnered or am I just being relied on? Because those are not the same thing. And if the relationship only worked because you kept overextending, the repair starts when you stop calling that love.